time you saw or heard something and just went, "Wonderworld," you know what I'm talking about. Someone expresses their thoughts, and immediately there's a response, either positive or negative. Most of the time, these interactions are so fast that most of us don't really think about it. We don't think about the fact that we're actually actively choosing to be closed-minded and not accepting of new perspectives and ideas. Which is why I'm standing here in front of all of you. I'm here to talk about learning acceptance, or at the very least, understanding and hopefully developing acceptance. I like to think of acceptance as being open and educated about a topic, and being able to express your thoughts about it in a way that is respectful to others. A topic can really be anything. I'll be using it as an umbrella term that can mean any subject, any opinion, even any object. My interpretation of acceptance, contrary to the general definition, does not necessarily correlate with agreeing. I'll expand that later. Learning and understanding acceptance is extremely essential, especially now, as due to globalization, we are exposed to a wider variety of people, many of who will hold differing values and viewpoints from us. And really, this relatively small step in interacting with someone can go a long way. In fact, let me tell all of you a little story to illustrate my point. So I really like this dish called TEDxYouth, which more or less translates to gym balls. That's a picture right up there. I mentioned this fact to some people I was talking to a while back, and they were extremely appalled that I ate what is basically chicken, just not the part they were used to. And like any person, when they see something they view negatively, they immediately rejected all notions of it, and then unfortunately proceeded to call me absolutely disgusting. The topic in that little instant, the chicken feet that I eat. Needless to say, of course, their reply was incredibly inappropriate and deeply hurtful, which is why I think talking about acceptance is so essential. According to Britannica, we have more than 270 ethnic groups in Australia, all of which will have different customs and viewpoints from us. So to truly connect with others and avoid conflict, we need to learn acceptance. There are 3 simple steps, which I like to think of as a beautiful not yet blooming flower. But B stands for bearing, U stands for understanding, and D stands for deciding. So the first step is be bearing. Bury or put aside your existing biases towards a certain topic. That, of course, includes some that you would really want to hold on to, but please just put it aside. And yes, I know that's easier said than done, but just take a step back. Step back and ask yourself, why do I think like this? And what is holding me back from letting go of that prejudice? Just going, it's wrong, or I'm disturbed by this, or this goes against common sense, is not an adequate completion of this step. Nor is only stating, my mind will be open once I hear some perspectives, because your mind in fact will not be open, and your preconceptions will still cloud your judgment if you don't get rid of it. That sounds incredibly confusing. So, let's go back to the chicken feet example. If someone were to apply the baby step, what would they do? They would ask themselves, why do I think like this? Why do I find it so disgusting? And the most likely answer would be because it's a food most have never seen before. It's retained its original shape from when it was on an animal, the little claw shape. And most people would think it's inedible. So what is holding them back from letting go of that prejudice? In this case, apart from the cultural differences listed above, not a lot. They just need to go, you know what, food's food, simple as that. Unfortunately, that's not the case for more serious topics. And in some situations, this process of putting aside the preconceptions conditioned into your mind will take a while. For some people, breaking out of the echo chambers they have trapped themselves in will take a lot of courage. and a maybe unhealthy dose of existential crisis. The second step is you understanding. Actively listen to explanations around topics you're trying to understand so that you can gain insight into the mind of the person you're talking to. As people say, knowledge is power, so the more knowledge you gain, the more powerful you'll become. When you try to understand, make sure to listen to all viewpoints. That includes some that you might think are utterly ridiculous. Of course, I'm not saying join a cult or throw yourself into questionable social circles, because please don't do that. That's how you end up on the news. Instead, just how you end up on the news. Instead, just be like a bystander. Go and ask some questions if prompted. Share your opinions as well. That way, not only are you breaking out of your own echo chambers, you could potentially be breaking them out of theirs as well. Also, of course, if they try dragging into something you don't want to be dragged into, kindly decline, and if prompted, run for it. Also, preferably, get your information from reliable sources, as getting rid of your own biases to then fill your head with another that is from someone who may or may not be fully informed on what they are talking about is neither efficient nor effective. Just like if someone did some quick Googling about the benefits of chicken feet, they would realize that eating it, in fact, produces less food waste, as most people would immediately throw it out. Also, it's high in collagen, which has a lot of health benefits, skin rejuvenation, preventing bone loss, and relieving joint pain. Also, I'd like to think I'm a reliable source, and I can say that chicken feet is delicious if you know how to cook it and season it. Please season your food. Also, my parents haven't aged in like 30 years, so that could be a chicken feet helping with their skin. That could just be the East Asian genes. For a differing opinion, there's of course the animal cruelty perspective, which I'm not going to go into right now. And the final step is the deciding. Decide, are you neutral? Do you support the topic? Or do you politely disagree? And remember, no matter what you choose, you can always come back to these steps and change your stance if you want to. So the first one of the choices is to stay neutral, contrary to what our extremely opinionized world would make you think. There's nothing inherently wrong with, well, being a fence-sitter. Choosing sides is not compulsory. Being neutral does not mean you hate or disagree with any of the other viewpoints. You might think all are correct or incorrect in some aspects. You might just want to distance yourself from the entire conversation. Being neutral also does not mean you are allowed to jeer and mock everybody else. Attempting to raise yourself up by pulling others down is not going to work, and most of the time, all people need is empathy and for their voice to be heard. Another choice is to support the topic. This is very self-explanatory. You've adequately learned enough about a certain topic and wish to be a supporter and ally. An essential note though. As I said before, your decisions might change. Nothing is so important that you have to go to the absolute extremes of something. Please don't be like one person on the sidewalk, aggressively yelling at cars, pushing your opinion down other people's throats, and or using vocal volume and peer pressure to make everyone around you mumble their agreement. Also, and most importantly, nothing is so vital that violence, brutality, or oppression is needed to defend it. You want to express your thoughts, protest against those who are against those thoughts, and or bring to attention an issue you see. Go ahead, peacefully and respectfully. And your final choice is to politely disagree. I like to highlight the word politely because that's extremely important. There's a significant difference between purely disagreeing and politely disagreeing. Purely disagreeing means that there's essentially no difference from where you were before the varying and understanding steps and where you are now. Politely disagreeing, meanwhile, means that you respect the other person and their choices You just don't agree, and you will express that disagreement in a civil way. And like I said before about going to the absolute extremes of something, please don't do that. The most we can do is give constructive criticism. And if that doesn't work, there's literally no point in chasing after someone who has closed their ears to your words. Don't waste your time and energy on something that is pointless. And yes, there are a lot of, let's say, ill-informed people out there, but at the end of the day, they're human and deserve to be treated like one. Again, linking back to the example, if someone were to stay neutral, they wouldn't necessarily try it for themselves, but they also would make no comments on my consumption of it. If they were to support a topic, congratulations, they tried something new and will now be immortal like me. And if they were to politely disagree, that's completely fine. We all have our preferences. So let's reiterate. We have a beautiful not yet blooming flower, a bud. B stands for bearing. Bury or put aside your existing biases towards a certain topic. Step back and ask yourself, why do I think like this? And what is holding me back from letting go of that prejudice? U stands for understanding. Actively listen to explanations around topics you're trying to accept, so that you can gain insight into the mind of the person you're talking to. Make sure to listen to all viewpoints surrounding the topic, including some you might not want to listen to. Also, preferably, get your information from reliable sources. And D stands for deciding. Decide, are you neutral? Do you support the topic, or do you politely disagree? And remember, no matter what you choose, please be respectful and civil, and don't blindly accuse others of being wrong. If someone doesn't listen, attempt to educate and move on. So next time you're talking to someone and they say something you don't necessarily agree with, instead of immediately recoiling and spewing the first thing that comes out of your mouth, think about it. Think about the bud method. What are the steps? How would you apply them? And think about how you could use it to better learn or at least understand acceptance. And as the internet people say, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay.